Hey everyone, today I want to speak about some really pressing matters that truthfully I do not feel like they should become the norm going forward. First, I want to speak on something regarding Square Enix, and later on there's news that Tencent, the Chinese mega company, is now being labeled a military contract company, and things are they're getting out of hand everywhere, dude. Let's just talk about it. Everything in this video is about things getting out of hand, who are we kidding? But firstly, Square Enix has decided to pull a really bad move in my opinion. If you somehow don't know, Square Enix is the home of games like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and everyone's favorite franchise, Forspoken. Remember that game? Well, Square Enix sure doesn't. Anyway, they have issued a new public policy going forward that will genuinely, in my opinion, do nothing but make things far worse for them in the future. This comes from cmagonline.com. Square Enix enacts new policy to protect employees and take legal action against customer harassment. Of course, this was written by Hayes Madsen, the same guy who hates white people despite being white himself. Anyway, what exactly is going on here? Well, Square is issuing a new group harassment policy within their company, and the precedent that they want to push will backfire on them for sure. Here's what it says. The company then says there are instances where customers have acted directly or through Square Enix support centers towards executives, employees, or partners and done things that constitute customer harassment. Examples the company provided include acts of violence, abusive language, intimidation, trespassing, discriminatory speech, stalking, and unreasonable demands for punishment of employees. Square Enix is now prepared to take legal action against instances of harassment and says it will reserve the right to cease providing services to individuals that breach the guidelines. This sounds reasonable somewhat, but when you actually look into what they specify as reasons for this sort of termination, it's kind of insane. Also, pretty much what this all means is that if you breach the contract, if you will, Square Enix's policy here, they could find out who you are, which service you are using, so let's just say PlayStation or Steam for an example here, and go, okay, your username is whatever it is, and then we will issue a block on your account so you cannot buy or interact with our games anymore. This is insane. This is a terrible precedent for many, many reasons, but let me first show you more in-depth examples of what Square Enix is allegedly claiming to be things that would then allow this to happen. So I got the official document here. Thanks to Smash JT, by the way, for finding this, so shout out to him, and here's what it says. Should Square Enix determine that an individual has engaged in an action against one of our employees or partners that exceeds socially acceptable behavior or is harmful, we reserve our right to cease providing support services or to refrain from providing our group's products and services. Where such action is egregious or with malicious intent, Square Enix reserves its right to protect its employees and partners, and to take legal action or criminal proceedings upon consulting the police and/or lawyers. Actions which Square Enix considers customer harassment or to exceed socially acceptable behavior or is harmful include, but are not limited to, this is crazy, and the following examples. Act of violence, violent behavior, abusive language, intimidation, coercion, duress, excessive pursuit or reprimand, defamation, slander, denial of personality, personal attack, including email, contact and contact form, comment, or post on the internet. You guys got to be kidding. Advance notice of wrongdoing, advance notice of obstruction of business, persistent inquiries, repeated visits, trespassing by visiting or staying in an office or related facility without permission, unlawful restraint including via telephone calls and online inquiries, discriminatory speech and conduct regarding race, ethnicity, religion, family origin, occupation, etc., infringement of privacy by taking pictures or making video recordings without consent, sexual harassment, stalking, repeated stalking behavior. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So some of this is reasonable, in my opinion. I think if someone is showing up to your office and ends up physically assaulting your employees, the police should obviously be called. I think we all understand that. Another, of course, is sexual harassment or stalking, which, first of all, why are you ever going to resort to that when it comes to a video game or something else is beyond me. So what if you don't like something in a game, so you decide that you need to physically harass or assault a dev in person? Yeah, that makes no sense to me. That's just deranged behavior and the police should be called. Although parts of this are so nebulous that they start entering that negative zone where these sorts of things can easily be twisted to fit whatever narrative they kind of need. Like saying that defamation or slander, which they consider to include a contact or email, which is stupid because customers are allowed to email public companies and ask questions regarding their products. That isn't an unlawful thing to do. They even say contact and contact form, which also doesn't make any sense. You mean like the contact forms you as a company send out asking for feedback on products? If someone tells you what they think in that contact form and you don't like it, they should be ceased in terms of what they can buy from you in the future. That's kind of insane. I mean, it's one thing if they say, in the contact form, this dev, and then they insert the name and say they should end their lives for doing this in a game. Okay, that's obviously egregious. But if you're saying in the contact form, hey, I don't like the way this gameplay is, I don't like this monetization tactic you did, that's legitimate criticism. But a lot of this doesn't make any sense. The dumbest one is where they say that they can cease to provide you access to their products via a comment or post on the internet that you make. This is ridiculous. I think we all know why, because for example, here I am right now talking about this in video form as you watch it. I'm not attacking Square Enix, but I am criticizing their policy here because it's clear that the guidelines here are nebulous at best. Who's to say that I can't be banned for simply criticizing this, which would be stupid by the way, because while I do enjoy Square Enix's games quite a lot, I do think as a customer, I have a right to look at your guidelines and policies here and go, hey, this is really out of line. Like I said, some of it makes sense. I think arresting someone for sexually assaulting your devs is, no complaints for me, come on. Or if someone, brandishes a weapon at your office, call the police. It's all good, we understand. But criticism on the internet and policing speech through potentially not allowing them to access your games? Dude, this is just going to lead to a boycott. Like, hypothetical example here, alright? Let's say that Asmongold catches wind of this story, and he talks about it, and I wager that he will likely have a very similar take to what I am saying here right now. Then someone at Square Enix sees Asmongold talking about this policy. He's not attacking the devs or whatever, and neither am I, by the way, by making this video, just to be clear. And then they block Asmongold's account on Steam to play their games. Okay, what's the likely response to that situation? Will the average consumer who hears this story just say, well, that's what happens, and then move on with their lives? Or will they boycott Square Enix for infringing on Asmongold's right to free speech when it comes to him voicing his opinions? All this will end up doing is snowballing a massive boycott against Square Enix in the future. They're already hurting. I mean, even their biggest cash cow, Final Fantasy XIV, has dropped below 1 million players for the first time in years. In no small part thanks to their latest expansion, Dawntrail, that was underperforming, and then many fans of that game rightfully went and made videos criticizing the game's story and characters. Does this mean that Square Enix could in turn find each and every one of these players' accounts who criticize their products and ban them, so to speak? I mean, I guess they could, but all that would end up doing is what I said already. It will just lead to a massive boycott that could kill your entire company. Because when you create policies like this, it's going to make people not want to support your company out of principle alone. Even if the customer in question doesn't voice their opinions publicly or has a YouTube channel, Twitch page, or anything like that, on principle alone, what Square Enix is pushing here is grounds for people to just walk away and never want to buy their games ever again. Plus, this also then creates another can of worms. How can you enact your will as a company to limit someone's free speech, especially if the person criticizing you is not from Japan? Let's say, since that's where Square Enix is mostly located. This entire thing just gets worse the longer you think about it logically. I have no doubt that this policy was issued and created by the westernized side of Square Enix, because there's no way that the Japanese side of Square Enix thought this was a good idea at all, because it isn't. They do claim that this policy is issued globally in the official document, and what they are pushing here is within the confines of Japanese law. But to be real with you, I don't see this policy existing 6 months from now at best. Because I think as more people catch wind of this story, if they haven't already, it will be rightfully criticized and picked apart. And again, this has nothing to do with the employees. I'm not even attacking anyone specifically here. I have no problem with the devs there or anyone else, but this policy needs to be talked about. Because if things like this become the precedent going forward, it will not end well for anybody. What it sounds like to me anyways, is that this is the last-ditched effort of some end-war attempt to silence criticism and players' voices in the future when it comes to what makes their way into games. It is truly just censorship in every way. The original article I cited here, it also gave examples of what they believe could be deemed reasons for this policy to be enacted upon someone. And by the way, all these things I'm about to read you are nebulous and very stupid at best. One example given, and here I'll read it for you. Square Enix isn't the first company to enact this kind of policy, and it's not entirely surprising to see as toxicity has in recent years dangerously spiked online and on social media apps like X. The company received waves of harassment when Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake changed the male and female character options to body type A and body type B. Hayes Madsen, you can't be serious. That wasn't harassment. That is legitimate criticism of a change that was rightfully called out. You see what I mean, what they're trying to do here? Dragon Quest III changing female and male to body types made no sense, and by the way, when you play the game, which I did, I 100%ed it, there's still armor in that game that is still tied to gender regardless, so the body type thing is pointless. Not to mention, the literal creator of Dragon Quest was found publicly stating that he found the change ridiculous, and that they only did it because the Western people who work at Square Enix demanded the change or the game couldn't be sold in their markets. And then they scrubbed that video as best they could from the internet because what Yuji Horii said was considered not right think by what they were trying to push here. That's not harassment to call that out. It's literal censorship on their own employees' opinions. Another example they give is earlier this year, Final Fantasy XIV director Naoki Yoshida also put out a statement condemning the transphobic attacks against Wook Lamott's voice actor and asking players to refrain from personal attacks. Look, I don't know about the transphobic stuff, but I do know that plenty of players have created hour-long essays on YouTube criticizing the entirety of Dawntrail. Like, we're talking the quest structure, the story, the characters, dialogue, all of it. And all of them have said that Wook Lamott is a terrible character. I haven't played the game, so I'm just telling you what others are saying about it. But the point still stands that speaking about this is not hate speech. You should be allowed to voice your opinion on these things. And what they're trying to do here is genuine censorship and fear-mongering on their part. Saying that you can't criticize or voice your concerns on how a franchise or product is going is how boycotts start. Like, am I going crazy here? Tell me if I am, but I don't really think I am. Then there's this example. Dude, listen to this. This also comes in the wake of multiple other companies and developers experiencing harassment. Back in June, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot condemned the hateful acts against developers following backlash against Assassin's Creed Shadows. And Tales of Kenzara creator Abu Bakr Salim called out a fever pitch of racism received after the game's launch. You can't be using Ubisoft as an example here, dude, as a genuine form of harassment. They literally used the one-legged Torigate, a symbol of Hiroshima, to sell their Assassin's Creed Shadows characters who weren't even alive canonically when the bombs went off. They added Yasuke to the game when he's been historically confirmed to have not have been a samurai, and was simply sent back to the Jesuits once Nobunaga's reign ended, which was a mere short year or two after they first met. And the Abu Bakr Salim thing, you mean sweet baby. You see what I mean? I see what you're trying to do here, Hayes Madsen. It's not going to work. I'm not going to let you do that. They're trying to police and censor your right to buy products now if you don't fall in line. Look, I want to say I do enjoy Square Enix's games. I love them. Well, most of them. Some of them are, but anyway. The point of the matter is that this company, Square Enix in particular, is struggling right now financially. and it is not in their best interest to now limit the people who are actually buying their products and keeping them alive in order to appease some activist morons' demands over there who's whispering in their ears. This is genuinely so concerning, and I hope more people talk about this, because if this balloons and gets adopted, we're going to enter a literal end war of ideals where thousands, if not millions of potential customers will be permanently cut off due to any and all reasons by these delusional companies. Oh, you said this game's graphics aren't good? Banned. You don't like this character design? Banned. You ask me if Square Enix wants to go into bankruptcy? This is definitely the way to do it. Because this will just make people never want to support you guys ever again, and that hurts me because I love their games, dude. Like, I understand, banning someone, although even to that degree it's kind of weird, but like, banning someone in a sense or getting the police involved if they say this developer should end themselves. Or they want to sexually harass, I don't know, this female developer that worked on this game. I understand getting the police involved on a local level. That makes perfect sense to me. But when you want to ban someone for saying that I don't like this monetization, I don't like the way this character looks, I don't like the way you changed this about this in a remake, I don't like the fact that you made gender type A and B when it should have been male and female, like, these are legitimate criticisms, guys. Come on. This is not hateful speech. This is customers voicing their opinions. You can sound how angry and annoyed I am right now. Like, come on. Like, even apparently Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth, they weren't even profitable enough for Square Enix either. And Square, let me ask you this. Who bought the game at release? Was it the people who demanded these insane policies? For God's sakes, I own 3 copies of Final Fantasy 16. I own it digitally, which is how I played it. I also own it physically, as in like the basic version, and I even have the deluxe version still sealed. I own Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth digitally and physically too. I have the same thing with plenty of their other games. You guys cannot be serious about this. And if anyone at Square Enix is watching this, you have to realize that this looks so terribly bad for your company that it's unreal, dude. Change this before you guys go bankrupt and lose anything. Or don't. Maybe you'll just become the next Ubisoft if you keep this up, and that would break my heart. Okay, now the next story I want to talk about now is Tencent, the Chinese mega company that kind of owns a small or big part of practically every other gaming studio or franchise under the sun. And they are now being classified a threat by the US government. No, I'm not kidding, and this is from Fandom Pulse. Tencent threatens it will take legal proceedings against the US Department of Defense after it was labeled a Chinese military company. The American Department of Defense issued a document titled Notice of Availability of Designation of Chinese Military Companies recently. The list was compiled by Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, and they confirmed that Tencent was indeed a Chinese military company in their eyes. Yeah, dude, yikes. Let's just get into this. Tencent would reply to the American Department of Defense's claims with, and I quote, "As the company is neither a Chinese military company nor a military civil fusion contributor to the Chinese defense industrial base, it believes that its inclusion in the CMC list is a mistake. Unlike other lists maintained by the US government for sanctions or export control measures, inclusion in the CMC list relates only to US defense procurement, which does not affect the business of the group. Inclusion in the CMC list will not prohibit any persons other than the Department of Defense from business dealings with the company, including transacting in the securities of the company. The company intends to initiate a reconsideration process to correct this mistake. During the process, it will engage in discussions with the US Department of Defense to resolve any misunderstanding, and if necessary, will undertake legal proceedings to remove the company from the CMC list." End quote. Yeah, this is pretty crazy, dude, that the literal US government has now stepped in and gone, Tencent is the enemy. It is bold claims to add them to a military list of all things too. I should say that Tencent, like any Chinese company, are, to some capacity, involved with the Chinese government directly. There's no point in denying this since it is true, but going as far as to label them as such is crazy in this regard. Like military? Yikes. This would and could lead to future sanctions against Tencent and their products, by the way, if this situation were to sour even more than it already has. Which means that any company, or I assume game even, that is aligned with Tencent could be theoretically blacklisted or boycotted by the American government in turn. Let me just read you some of the stuff that Tencent is involved with, which would lead to another very crazy boycott, dude. This is nuts. Tencent fully owns games like Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, Saint Seiya, Dune Awakening, The Division 2, Fortnite, Perfect World, Red Alert OL, Digimon New Generation, Call of Duty Mobile, and Naruto, to name some. In terms of companies that Tencent owns a portion of, which would technically make these companies complicit in this military company accusation, includes places like Funcom, that's Dune Awakening, Riot Games, so League of Legends and stuff like that, Supercell, Epic Games, that's Fortnite again, Bloober Team, that's the Silent Hill 2 remake people, Layers of Fear, that kind of stuff, Netmarble, From Software, yeah, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and more, Remedy Entertainment, that's Alan Wake and Max Payne, Krafton, that's PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds and Callisto Protocol, Ubisoft, you know who they are, and Kadokawa Corporation, which owns places like From Software. All of these companies, and by the way, that's not even all of them technically, even apps owned by China would be affected by this too. So stuff like WeChat, Snapchat, which is owned by China in case you didn't know that, and of course TikTok, being yet another app made by China as well. By the way, TikTok is currently on its way to getting banned in the US right now as we speak too. Apparently, TikTok is considered a security threat as it's being called a direct portal to the youth of America that is not in the hands of American companies. So, they are claiming that China is influencing the children of America through TikTok. Oh, indeed, dear viewers, this is a can of worms. But the Supreme Court has said that if China were to sell TikTok to America, then the app could still be used in the country as its analytical data and all of that would be under the control of their government instead. Of course, ByteDance, who runs TikTok and is of course attached to Tencent, refused this offer that the app could very well be banned entirely going forward. Apparently, they could also divest in the app. But like I said, I don't think that China is going to allow their app to be controlled by someone else, because who are we kidding? TikTok is a literal cash cow, and of course the cultural significance of its impact cannot be understated. Apparently, there's a billionaire in America named Frank McCourt who claims that he was able to secure around $20 billion in investments from investors who are ready, willing, and able to buy TikTok from China outright at a moment's notice. So this entire situation with Tencent, TikTok, really all of it, is being classified as a military company, is causing this pivotal moment where both sides are not willing to compromise, and they want the other side, of course, to give in to their demands. You ask me, I don't think China will sell TikTok to American investors, and I think they will just pull the app and then just let the public outcry from social media and all the rattled users that are addicted to it strong-arm America into allowing the app to come back regardless. But I wouldn't be surprised if this military company classification of Tencent is not something being done deliberately to create the public persona in a negative light for Tencent and China by association. Isn't this all crazy? I'm kind of out of breath. I mean, I haven't even used TikTok in forever myself. I think the app is full of brain rot, but I can't say much since I do use Twitter, and that too is full of enough nonsense to make you go insane on a good day. But between the TikTok ban, the Chinese military company thing with Tencent, not to mention the ramification of Square Enix's newest policy that will backfire on them as more people inevitably learn about it, I just wonder, where will we be going in 2025, dear viewers? It seems that the companies are not happy that people have a voice now, and they're going to do things to silence or strong-arm you into obedience to get said free speech to stop. And all of this is happening, especially in America, where Trump is about to go into office. Let's not forget, too, that places like Facebook have also been prioritizing free speech as well going forward. But we all know had Kamala Harris won, Facebook would be doubling down on censorship, but they're realizing now where the wind is blowing. And I think what we're seeing, at least when it comes to free speech and censorship, I mean, let's not forget that Justin Trudeau resigned as Prime Minister of Canada, which has also now made the seat of Canada's power open to conservatives to take again. This is all just crazy, dude. Is all of this just a smokescreen or the death cries of a losing ideology? There's a lot to think about here, and I would love for you to give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments. It's all just genuinely insane, dude. The Square Enix thing is ridiculous, but the rest of it is rightfully knucking futz. I think we can all agree. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know. Thank you for being here. Subscribe. Thanks to my supporters. I'll see you guys soon. My God, things are getting crazy. Okay, my voice hurts. I'm done talking. Bye-bye.